After the chaos backstage at last week's post-WrestleMania 39 edition of Monday Night Raw, WWE Executive Chairman Vince McMahon is reportedly not backstage tonight in Seattle, Washington for the Raw tapings. We've got details on that. Plus, Logan Paul re-signs with WWE after his contract expired following WrestleMania. We've got plenty of details on his multi-year contract he has signed with WWE. Is Bayley backstage tonight at Monday Night Raw? We've got details on that. Riddle, expect to see him at every WWE live event moving forward, including Raw and SmackDown. Details on what the original Bro is going to be doing in WWE moving forward. Several NXT stars are backstage at tonight's Raw tapings. And what was Ric Flair's thoughts on the best match of WrestleMania 39 weekend? Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. Let's get straight into what a lot of people were wondering about when it pertains to tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw. And the big question was, is Vince McMahon, the WWE Executive Chairman, was he going to be backstage tonight at Monday Night Raw? Of course, after last week's Raw, after WrestleMania 39, the Raw after WrestleMania, the show was in many ways a nightmare for the company. And not the American kind that lost in the main event of WrestleMania 24 hours prior. Vince McMahon was backstage at the show less than 24 hours after the company's sale to Endeavor and merger with the UFC was announced. The show was firmly run by McMahon, with many late rewrites taking place, leading to a major hit to backstage morale. However, Vince was not at SmackDown last week in Portland, Oregon, which had many WWE stars wondering what exactly the future held in regards to his possible involvement on a week-to-week basis when it pertains to the creative and running of WWE television tapings. McMahon's absence led to a major upswing in morale after it took a big hit last Monday, with most taking a wait-and-see approach, as Vince had reportedly had plans for Friday prior to the news of WWE's Endeavor sale. However, in an update from tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw in Seattle, Washington, per Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Vince McMahon is not backstage at the show, so it will once again be run by Paul Triple H Levesque. Now, it must be stressed, he's not backstage right now, but to be honest, you cannot rule out a late McMahon appearance. But as of right now, at the time of recording this, we're about 4 hours away from Monday Night Raw going live on the air. So logically, you would think, given the time it would take for him to get there, most likely he's not going to be backstage. Now, that's not to say SmackDown, he didn't have any involvement in the show, because he did. He was in production meetings remotely. He made some minor changes, some minor tweaks to creative, but nothing on the scale of a mass overhaul that he made on Monday. So it would look like maybe this is going to be the formula moving forward, at least for now, which is that Triple H is still running the tapings. Triple H is still the point man when it comes to creative. But as he said prior to WrestleMania, he will have conversations with Vince McMahon. But again, this all depends on what's going to happen on a week-to-week basis. When Vince is there, are we going to see what we saw on Monday? And when he isn't there, are we going to see what we saw on Friday? Certainly, that's going to be very interesting to see. Now, when it comes to Vince McMahon as well, since we're talking about WWE's executive chairman, while there were reports stating that Vince McMahon turned up to the March 6th episode of Monday Night Raw with a brand new look, we didn't actually get our first proper look at McMahon's questionable facial hair until the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony during WrestleMania weekend. However, while brief snapshots of McMahon at the ceremony finally satiated our curiosity, it wasn't until McMahon would appear on CNBC to discuss WWE's sale to Endeavor that we would get a much closer look at that thing that was crawling across McMahon's upper lip. Now, the drastic appearance change famously goes against McMahon's previous stance on facial hair. However, it seems as though there are some that aren't on board with the change in Vince McMahon's look. Speaking on the latest episode of Last Week Tonight, host John Oliver would discuss not only WWE's Endeavor deal, but also, more importantly, McMahon's current appearance. Oliver would spend 30 seconds roasting McMahon, spouting a host of burns such as, he looks like the answer to the question, what if Salvador Dali chose to live without imagination? He looks like he's about to challenge someone to a balloon race around the world. He looks like Vincent Price having an allergic reaction to being stung by bees. He looks like a circus owner from the 1930s who harasses the dancers, mistreats the animals for fun, and is eventually murdered by a lion while the whole town cheers, and sadly, that is my time. Oliver would also describe described McMahon's appearance as an AI-generated response to the prompt Snake Tycoon. With McMahon firmly now back in the fold, there are certainly many questions surrounding WWE's creative situation. As I mentioned, as of right now, at the time of recording, McMahon is not backstage at Monday Night Raw tonight in Seattle, Washington. What did you think of that news, and what do you think of John Oliver's descriptions of what Vince McMahon currently looks like? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, another big story today is a big re-signing for WWE. Social media megastar Logan Paul is indeed staying with World Wrestling Entertainment. Now, Paul's WWE contract expired after WrestleMania 39, but the company hasn't wasted any time in rehiring the social media sensation. Paul took to Twitter on Monday and shared a photo with Paul Triple H Levesque in which he can be seen showing off his renewed WWE contract. Kind of. We'll get into that in just a second. Now, the photo also features a bottle of the Prime Energy drink, whose company sponsored Paul's match at WrestleMania 39. We've got some more details about this in just a second, but the assumption is that Paul will continue to work a part-time schedule and will be used as a star attraction, similar to his last contract agreement. Outside of wrestling, of course, Paul has a myriad of business ventures, including his successful Impulsive podcast, so he certainly isn't short on projects to focus on outside of sports entertainment. In terms of his rookie year, Logan Paul has had an impressive rookie year in WWE. Following his in-ring debut at WrestleMania 38, he went on to have acclaimed programs with superstars such as The Miz, Roman Reigns, and Seth freaking Rollins. His performances even gained some attention from the MMA world as well, with UFC President Dana White calling Paul's WWE tenure a home run. It remains to be seen what WWE has in store for Logan Paul moving forward. However, boxer Tommy Fury wants to face him in WWE at some point and said that he'll do it in an instant if the opportunity presents itself. It's going to be quite difficult considering the Furies can't actually get into America at the moment, but you never know what could and maybe will happen in the future. Now, I said when it comes to details, we might have some details in this. In comments made to ESPN, Logan Paul stated, quote, "I feel incredibly blessed to have found something that I'm good at 28 years old, and the fact that the organization believes I'm good enough to continue, hopefully building this WWE legacy, is mind-blowing, and I'm incredibly grateful and incredibly blessed. And as long as I can keep putting on good shows, man, I'm going to keep doing this sport." Now, Triple H, WWE's chief content officer, would also add, quote, "Logan has been a game changer. I mean, he's probably the most natural guy I have ever seen. It's almost like he was made for this business, just being a natural as far as talking and being on camera. He's so good at that. And then his athleticism is just next level. He's exactly the kind of guy that I look for as a WWE superstar. Whether he was an influencer or not, he'd be the kind of guy I'd look for as a superstar." With only a handful of appearances to date, all of which have garnered a positive response, Logan Paul looked at what the future holds under a new multi-year deal compared to his previous one-year deal, saying, quote, "It's hard to do that when you don't have a long contract with a piece of talent, or you're talking about a guy over or putting a guy over who may not be there next year. The idea with this multi-year contract was to get really creative around the story that we're telling as my professional wrestling career unfolds. Being the hyper-ambitious person that I am, I'm going for a bout. I wouldn't have signed this contract if I didn't think I was capable of getting a WWE bout. I think it'd be the coolest thing ever. Don't let Vince McMahon hear you say bout, Logan. Your career will be over." So he continued by saying, quote, "I'd love to have it on my resume, and I'd love to show every kid around the world who watches WWE that you can achieve anything." Now, as I mentioned, it was certainly interesting as well when he continued to talk about some of the injuries that he had sustained during his first year in WWE. Paul would famously suffer a torn MCL following his WWE Undisputed Universal Championship match against Roman Reigns at WWE Crown Jewel back in November. Paul would discuss the dangers of WWE and the effect getting hurt would have on his confidence in his future in the company, noting, quote, "I was worried that maybe I was too fragile for this sport, having a lot of self-doubts about my vessel and my body's capability to withstand the type of damage that you take in this sport. You have to be durable to be a wrestler." However, following his last match at WrestleMania 39 against Seth freaking Rollins, Paul's confidence would be lifted after walking away physically unscathed, saying, quote, "After this WrestleMania, when I walked away unscathed, like I'm telling you unscathed, the next day I could have ran a half marathon. I got a lot more confident in my longevity in this sport. There's a way to do it. There's a way to perform where you mitigate athletic risk, and I'm going to find it, and I'm going to go for the long haul." So it would appear Logan Paul is going to be around for the foreseeable future. Triple H also commented on this in addition to that ESPN article by tweeting out, quote, "A proven superstar on the biggest stage. Can't wait to see what's next for Logan Paul." So certainly it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Logan Paul. As mentioned, he's been critically acclaimed ever since stepping inside the squared circle. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter called him, quote, "without question, the greatest celebrity turned wrestler in history." Very, very high praise. Now, what is actually really interesting about the post, and it's just one of these things that nobody would notice, but social media being social media, they picked up on this, and it's absolutely fascinating. So the way that he announced this deal is that he posted a tweet that said contract renewed at WWE. Pretty nondescript, right? Everyone said, oh, Logan Paul's re-signed with WWE. Well, it's interesting because if the photo looks familiar to you, it should, because it's a photo that's been used before, and certainly there were some interesting differences, and I'll show what I mean here. So this is the picture that Logan Paul posted today, right? It's a picture of him with Triple H holding up, I guess, his WWE contract. There's a bottle of Prime there. Nothing out of the ordinary. You would think, oh, it's just shared a picture. Well, if you go back to the picture of him signing with WWE in the summer of last year, it's the same picture. It's the same picture of Logan Paul. What's just happened is they photoshopped his jacket, they photoshopped the bottle of Prime, and in addition to that, they've edited out Stephanie McMahon. Now, it's quite interesting, certainly. The biggest difference is removing the former WWE co-CEO Stephanie McMahon from the photo. Of course, she's no longer with the WWE, announcing her resignation in January, shortly after Vince McMahon returned to WWE's board of directors. Again, it's fascinating. Now, it's worth noting that as of this recording, I don't believe WWE has used this edited photo. I think Logan Paul only has, but I'm sure they'll talk about it tonight on Monday Night Raw. Now, it could just be a case of they just wanted a different picture and they didn't have time to do a different picture. And it could just be a case of, well, if we're going to use the same picture, Stephanie McMahon's not with the company anymore, so we've got to change it. But this is just one of those things, isn't it, that's interesting. This is today. This was last summer. It's the same photo. Now let's talk about Bayley. Lots of conversation and speculation going on about the former women's champion, her status in WWE after some cryptic tweets of her own after last week's WrestleMania event. A new report has revealed an update on Bayley's status for tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw in Seattle. Bayley has found herself in the headlines following her loss at WrestleMania 39 and curious social media posts. The popular star recently caused a stir online following WrestleMania 39 by tweeting after the Saturday event, quote, "And sometimes the most romantic love story comes to an end. Bye." After recent reports alluded to the former SmackDown Women's Champion being available to use on the April 10 episode of Raw, a new update has been provided ahead of tonight's show. Per PW Insider Elite, Bayley is at tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw and the broadcast taping in Seattle, Washington. The report notes that all the social media stuff was storyline related to get a buzz. It was also reiterated that there is no current belief that the Damage Control leader is exiting the company. Now, there has been spoilers out there as to what Damage Control could be doing tonight. I'm not going to get into that, but the big news is, and the big report is, that Bayley not only is available to use tonight on Raw, but she is backstage, so there is a high chance the former women's champion could be appearing on the broadcast. Now, one person that returned last week on Monday Night Raw was Matt Riddle. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about Matt Riddle because he's going to have a very busy schedule now that he's back on WWE television, if a new report is to be believed. If you've missed seeing Matt Riddle on your television screens, then you're in luck. PW Insider Elite has reported now that he's returned to WWE programming, you can expect to see him essentially at every live event moving forward. That includes both Monday Night Raw, where he made his return last week, and Friday Night SmackDown, where he interrupted Solo Sikoa and Jey Uso while they were beating up Sami Zayn. Until last week, Riddle hadn't appeared on television since December, when Solo Sikoa took him out of action for several months while he was reportedly suspended and confirmed to have undergone rehab for a second failed drugs test. Tonight on Raw, he'll take on The Miz in his first match back in action. That will be interesting to monitor whether or not his issues with the bloodline, specifically Sikoa, continue to develop. Before the Usos became undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions, Riddle held the Raw Tag Team Championships with Randy Orton. Once the Viper was written off WWE television due to a back injury and RK Bro were no more, he went after Roman Reigns. However, he ultimately failed in capturing the undisputed Universal Championship. Now that he's back, he's promptly thrown himself back into the fray with the Bloodline, and in doing so, he aligned himself with the men who defeated the Usos at WrestleMania 39, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Most recently, Riddle wrestled Solo Sikoa in a dark match on April 7, defeating the Bloodline's enforcer via disqualification. In addition to his Raw Tag and United States Championship triumphs, Riddle was also a one-time NXT Tag Team Champion with Pete Dunne, now known as Butch. So Riddle, he's going to be featured a lot moving forward. In addition to Riddle being featured, and I guess people being backstage, we spoke about Bayley, some NXT names are backstage tonight, as they tend to always be, to be honest, at Monday Night Raw tapings. According to WRKD Wrestling on Twitter, the stars in question are former NXT UK champion Tyler Bate and Zoe Stark. Now, they're both most likely in town for the main event taping that will take place before Raw goes on the air. It's become a weekly tradition for NXT stars to appear on main event to work matches with the main roster talent, and it's not necessarily an indication of any planned call-ups or anything like that. It's just a way for management to get a better look at them on a bigger stage. However, having saying that, there's been not much noise regarding any call-ups for Tyler Bate. Zoe Stark's name has been in the conversation in the past. She was even one of the only 3 NXT talents to appear in the Women's Royal Rumble match this past January. There is a feeling that maybe some NXT superstars could be involved in the WWE draft whenever that takes place in a few weeks' time. So maybe this is something for that, but it's unlikely it's going to be anything in the real immediate future for either of them. Finally, you may have asked the question, what was Ric Flair's favourite match during WrestleMania 39 weekend? Well, it's not too hard to predict what it was going to be. The WWE Hall of Famer, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who named his pick and provided insight on his favourite match on the To Be The Man podcast. His pick would be none other, you guessed it, than Charlotte Flair, his daughter, versus Rhea Ripley for the SmackDown Women's Championship, with Flair saying, quote, "They had the best match at WrestleMania." Flair would reveal that it's not just him saying that, adding, quote, "If I showed you the people that texted me, and I'll never violate their privacy, what they sent me about Charlotte and Rhea, you'd be amazed. These are people that know, not people that just speculate. From the time Ashley hit that spinning DDT on Rhea, which she took perfectly on the top of her head, there's 2 ways to take it. You take it on your knees, that looks like shit, or you take it straight up and down, which is dangerous. And you are asking a lot of trust in the person giving it to you. To that German, where she completely did a 360 off the second rope and landed on her face, nothing like it. Gorilla stood, which I'm privileged to be able to glad to, stood up from the DDT up. Look at this, German suplex bump. Who else in the business can do that? So he's even said he also believed that should have main evented WrestleMania Night 1 rather than Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos. Look, it's his daughter. This isn't surprising or anything like that, but there you go. Ric Flair thinks his daughter had the best match at WrestleMania 39 over the entire weekend. Go figure. But there you go, guys. It's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Remember, you can join the WN365 roster by clicking that join button, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.